The Liberals are not okay, and I don't think they've been okay since Donald Trump won the 2016 election, because it seems to have broken so many of their brains. But like in a lot of Western politics, whenever something bad happens, it's not the fault of the Liberals in power, it's not the fault of the bad right-wing people who do those bad things, it's actually the left's fault. It's always the left's fault. And this is embodied in US political discourse by Susan Sarandon derangement syndrome, in that apparently when anything bad happens in US politics done by either Donald Trump or done by Republicans during a time when the Democrats control the White House, the Senate and Congress, it is actually Susan Sarandon's fault. Now, why is it Susan Sarandon's fault? Pretty much for one reason. She didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in New York in 2016, which Hillary Clinton won easily anyway. But apparently because Susan Sarandon voted for Jill Stein and the Green Party, everything bad Republicans do is actually her fault and she's happy about, even when Liberals have all the power. We actually have a very similar thing here in the UK. It's probably Jeremy Corbyn derangement syndrome, where he gets blamed for everything, but I guess it makes even less sense because, okay, Jeremy Corbyn, he was leader of the opposition, he had 2 elections, even though it was pretty clear evidence he was sabotaged both times by Liberals in Labour. At least he's a political figure and he's an MP. Susan Sarandon is just one actress who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, and apparently now everything bad, including overturning Roe versus Wade, is all her fault. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this Susan Sarandon derangement syndrome. Going to talk about the Hollywood liberal bubble, and I know people like to say this is a bit of a myth. I believe it, but I'm coming at it from a left-wing perspective, not a conservative perspective who believe it's like a left-wing bubble. I just believe it's a liberal bubble. I want to talk about the unhinged backlash to Sarandon since 2016 and maybe just talk a bit about her activism. But before we go any further, if you want to support this video, please like and maybe leave a comment. For today, I would say, what is the most unhinged liberal thing you've seen? It doesn't have to be related to Susan Sarandon, although it can be, like things they will blame the left for which make absolutely no sense while they play defense lawyer for Joe Biden. Let me know down in the comments. If you want to help me build my chocolate orange pyramid even higher, for every 5k we get a new chocolate orange, so help me get to that 75k milestone for another one. Also, if you want to support my work continuing for the future, consider becoming a patron. I want to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, and the benefits of that, I get my Nintendo Switch friend code and getting access to the private patrons Discord server. Also consider subscribing to my second channel, the Kavernacle Extra, where I archive all my live streams, and join my subreddit down in the description. So I first want to talk about the liberal Hollywood bubble before we get into Susan Sarandon's recent comments and Democratic members of Congress calling her out for them, which seems really bizarre. Susan Sarandon has been outspoken on a lot of political issues for a long time. Of course, she is most famous for appearing in the Lonely Island music video called Mother Lover, where Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake play 2 best friends who want to give both their mums the best Valentine's Day of all time. So to solve this problem, they start dating each other's mums. It's a very powerful music video, a very powerful story. She's also famous for one of the best movie moments of all time in Thelma and Louise when she shoots that guy. Also, I can't believe that movie is directed by Ridley Scott. This guy has earned his right to crap all over Marvel movies when he's made Blade Runner, Alien and Thelma and Louise. But anyone who pays attention to American Hollywood, American celebrity culture will know that Susan Sarandon's outspoken politics are a bit of an outlier. And I'd say you'd have people like Mark Ruffalo, who isn't as outspoken, but he's pretty good. James Cromwell is another good one, although a lot less famous than the people I've mentioned. And then you have people like Leonardo DiCaprio, who do a lot of good work and raise a lot of awareness for environmental issues, but he's not explicitly political. I don't really mind too much with him because he does so much work for the environment. Maybe making it more explicitly political wouldn't be good for his work. But then you have a lot of other people in Hollywood who just hate Republicans and just hate Donald Trump. I think Chris Evans is the best example of this, where he'll tweet all the time about Donald Trump, sometimes tweet about Black Lives Matter. A lot of them tweeted about Black Lives Matter, but then they won't actually ever promote things that might be a bit controversial, like, did Chris Evans say anything about Israel last year? No. Did he star in a film about Mossad? Yes. And how heroic they were in evacuating Ethiopian Jewish people during the famine. But yes, by and large, American celebrity culture is basically a hive mind, and it's a liberal hive mind. You have some leftists like Sarandon, you have some conservatives like Jon Voight, Vince Vaughn, Mel Gibson, Clint Eastwood, but that is hardly the norm these days. It makes me laugh because I follow a lot of actors on Instagram primarily, especially my like private personal Instagram, and the hive mind is so ridiculous that you get British actors posting about American politics, like Clive Standen, who plays Rollo in Vikings and plays, a host of other roles. He was posting like pictures of Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she passed away. I think like Henry Cavill was doing something similar. And it's just really, really bizarre to me. Like, I don't know if he grew up in America or something, but it feels really weird, like a British person posting about that. But it feels like you just got to go into the hive mind. Like, you post about Black Lives Matter because everyone else is. You post about Ruth Bader Ginsburg because everyone else is. You put a Ukraine flag in your username or your bio because that is what a good liberal does. You support Joe Biden. You post pictures about him when he wins the election because that's what a good liberal does. But you'll stay completely silent on lots of issues that may be more controversial. So that's why I respect Susan Sarandon and, to a lesser extent, Mark Ruffalo, and also like Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz, because they do speak out on things that could get them in a lot of trouble, get them kind of shunned from the Hollywood liberal circle, but they do it anyway. And you've got to respect that. Respect someone who has a massive platform and will actually use it to raise awareness in a way that might not actually benefit their career. There's actually nothing more frustrating than liberal Hollywood celebrities. The reaction to Susan Sarandon is kind of an embodiment of this, in that anyone who speaks against the Democrats must be in the pay of Russia, must love Republicans, must love Trump. It couldn't be. As a left-wing person, they might just have a problem with their politics. Now, recently, of course, the draft was leaked that they are going to overturn Roe versus Wade in, I think, June of this year. And of course, it's horrific. Who's to blame about this? Is it Joe Biden? Is it Barack Obama? They promised they'd codify Roe versus Wade. Is it Ruth Bader Ginsburg for not resigning when she was a lot younger and still very, very ill, so Obama could put in more Supreme Court justices? Is it the actual Republicans on the Supreme Court? Or is it Susan Sarandon? So Eric Swalwell on his personal account writes, "There is one and only one way to preserve Roe v. Wade and protect a woman's right to choose, and that's to vote blue in 2022. Of course, the Democrats don't control every branch of government right now." Sarandon replying, "A lot of good that did in 2020. Dems are going to use this to fundraise and get you to vote for them again. Despite sitting on their hands for the last 2 years, instead of actually standing for anything, their only strategy is scaring you into voting blue. No lies told there." And then on his congressional account, he feels the need to call her out because he knows lots of libs like him just absolutely love hating on Susan Sarandon. So he writes back, "Can everyone all at once tell Susan Sarandon to sit this one out? She's caused enough trouble. Us real progressives will take it from here." And I do love this reply from Lindsay Ballant, who searched Representative Swalwell and Green New Deal and Medicare for All. He hasn't tweeted about either, so great progressive lawmaker we've got there. And also I found this fun. Also, I'd never heard of this headline, but someone else posted this in his replies. Obviously crazy for a guy to act like voting is a solution to all our problems, and then choosing to single out Susan Sarandon for calling him out on his garbage. And then she replies, "Please explain how exactly voting blue preserved and protected Roe v. Wade in 2012 when Obama had control of Congress, promised to codify Roe v. Wade and then didn't. Since you're asking voters to vote blue in 2022, show them the receipts. What's your plan?" So again, she has receipts here. And then she writes later, circling back on this, Swalwell, "What is your plan other than rage tweeting at actors?" Of course, doesn't reply. But Susan Sarandon rightly calling out the Democrats for doing nothing on Roe v. Wade for years and years, enabling Republicans to get to this point. And obviously calling out that they're going to use this as a campaign issue, like they did actually in the 2021 election. Like, you got to vote Joe Biden to get the Supreme Court justices on the courts. You can't say anything bad about the Democrats, apparently. So, Ukraine flag, I stand with Ukraine, Dan. Is Susan Sarandon Republican? Because she's doing a lot of their dirty work. She helped campaign against Al Gore and Clinton, which cost us 5 Supreme Court seats. Only Republican justice that should be on the court now is Clarence Thomas. If people like Sarandon would just STFU. And I do find that quite funny because Who allowed Clarence Thomas to get on the Supreme Court? It's the current president, Joe Biden. Susan Sarandon's timeline is hot garbage. What the F is wrong with her? Seriously, nothing but ignorant and wrong attacks on Democrats while letting Republicans slide by unscathed by her ire. She is the complete worst. I don't understand what is wrong with her brain. Never forget! Divisive scorched earthers Nina Turner and Susan Sarandon give 0 Fs about Trump becoming president and the possibility of a right-wing Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Turner and Sarandon is what happens when ego and self-righteousness clouds common sense. Of course, another Ukraine flag. Mary Trump is right. Susan Sarandon is a moron for suggesting it's pointless to vote for the Democratic Party. Susan Sarandon blames Democrats for failing to prevent repealing Roe v. Wade, taking away a woman's right to choose. The same Susan Sarandon whose attacks on Clinton helped elect Trump, who appointed 3 justices. Sarandon needs to sit down and shut the F up. There is something seriously wrong with Susan Sarandon. Seriously, the woman is not demonstrating balance of any kind. Susan Sarandon blaming Democrats for Roe v. Wade being overturned is projection. 101, another Ukraine flag. Sarandon actively campaigned against Al Gore, Clinton, and President Biden. She welcomed Trumpism. If Susan wants to know who's to blame, she can look in the mirror. Another Ukraine flag. Telling Sarandon to sit this one out is the kindest thing we can say to her. She and Jeannie Thomas should get together and exchange ideas on how to break out the country. I urge everyone to go read this thread because it's absolutely unhinged. Someone called the Salad Shooter basically tweeted screenshots of everyone they blame for Roe v. Wade being overturned, and here's one of Jill Stein, Susan Sarandon, and Bernie Sanders. So when we say Susan Sarandon derangement syndrome, you can see it there. She basically says, like, you Democrats, you promised to codify Roe v. Wade, Obama did, Biden did, well, why aren't you doing anything? Even Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, libs love him, he is a lib, said, why aren't they fighting back against this? The Republicans are winning because Democrats in Congress and the Senate won't do anything. Like, he said that. You're gonna go after him and call him a Russian asset or a Trump lover? And I do just find it hilarious that these people think one actress saying she won't vote for Hillary Clinton, votes for Jill Stein in New York, is responsible for all that has happened. Someone with no actual political power has done all this, and it's insane for them to blame her, but it just shows if you visibly step out of lockstep with this liberal Hollywood, liberal elite mindset, they're going to demonize you forever. Like, how crazy is it? Even if you don't agree with Susan Sarandon, even if you don't agree how she voted in 2000, how she voted in 2016, you can at least recognize nothing that has happened is her fault. In most elections, most Americans don't even vote. And you're saying it's Susan Sarandon's fault. Here's a good thing you can do, Democrats. You can go campaign in places where there's low voter turnout and try and get them to vote for you by promising them policies that will better your life. Hillary Clinton did not even campaign in some states, and Bernie Sanders did it for her. That's the entitlement these people have to your votes. I got a bit of pushback in 2020 when I said, you know, you don't have to vote for Joe Biden. Like, if you don't seriously want to be complicit in this system, you don't have to vote for him because there's always going to be another bad guy. Like, it's Trump this time. It was Trump last time. Who's it going to be next time? If Joe Biden is a nominee, who's going to be the Republican one? It's going to be DeSantis or Trump. So another lunatic. You just keep rewarding the Democrats because they're not insane. Is that the electoral system we're getting now? I don't know if you guys have been following this. Anna Kasparian is recently saying like she's done with electoral politics and she doesn't care. I was at that stage after Jeremy Corbyn lost in 2019. I don't care. I'm not voting for Labour. I don't care if they lose. I don't want to be complicit in that. These right-wing liberal ghouls running the country. Yeah, Boris Johnson is worse. They're awful. The Tories are worse. But rewarding people who actively purge left-wing people from a socialist party and literally agree with the right-wing framing the Tories do on every issue, I'm not going to reward that with my vote. I'm just done with that. I don't care anymore. So Susan Sarandon, someone who's actually done a lot of good outside electoral politics, being done with the Democrats, I don't blame her at all. And I don't blame her for the state America is in at all. It's on the Democrats and political parties and people with political power to earn your vote and earn people's votes by promising and acting in making their lives better. They haven't even done the bare minimum. They didn't even protect Roe v. Wade. That ruling was 1973. They can't even protect that. And Swalwell's argument is, vote for them more. How much more can you vote for them? Joe Biden is literally the most voted for president in American history. Voting seems like it's done all it can, especially when you have awful ghouls in the party like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer running things. Should Americans just vote them in again and think things are gonna change? If there's no consequences for doing nothing, they will continue to do nothing. And most of the time, even if there are consequences, they'll just blame the left. They always blame the left. There's a good article from my pals at Mail magazine, which I helped them with their Moon Man article a couple months back. Show me where Susan Sarandon hurt you. Sarandon's unforgivable sin, as establishment Dems and hashtag resistant types see it, was to endorse Bernie Sanders in 2016 and then Green Party candidate Jill Stein in the general election. That's it. Needless to say, Sarandon's single vote for Stein in the state of New York, where Hillary Clinton won easily, did not get Trump elected. Even if you attribute literally every Stein vote nationwide to her influence, the math does not support the conclusion that these women together cost Clinton the presidency. And it's wild that this has to be said when the true engineers of the feat can be found wherever you look. Democratic elites who ensured that Clinton was the party frontrunner while effectively blocking an incumbent vice president from seeking the nomination, a media sickly fascinated with Trump eager to indulge in the spectacle, the campaign team that wanted to face him but never figured out how to beat him. Hell, Sarandon's haters seem to despise her more than they do the millions of Trump voters. Maybe it's because she has strong principles. Historians are going to struggle with this. Why, when a handful of creeps in robes decided to roll back privacy and autonomy for American women, did a purportedly liberal faction train their fury on a well-known woman, encouraging them to stop making excuses and start fighting back? Here's what I tell them. It's more or less tradition for moderates to punch left when the far right is making gains. That's how they keep their power consolidated. You can't hold moral authority or political capital when people notice that you have no plan, no solidarity in the just cause, and no instincts beside self-preservation through neutrality. It's simply too pathetic. That Sarandon emerged as a prime target, however, is a sign of deeply personal acrimony. She flips a rage switch because she's supposed to be one of them, a glamorous white fundraising attending bleeding heart 75-year-old Hollywood icon still knocking him dead on the red carpet. How dare she deny Hillary or any mealy-mouthed Democrat the uncritical devotion that she's meant to follow from that identity? She owes them, but instead she holds them to account, as if they can be expected to represent the will of their constituents. How absurd. She ought to be posting blue wave emojis and the word vote a few hundred times a day like a good concerned wine mum, not marching in the streets for civil rights and labour unions. Cretins honestly believe that an in this house yard sign does more to uphold democracy than free speech itself. They can't stand that while their leaders dither and surrender, she never yields. So that article summed it up brilliantly, and the blue MAGA types who think voting is an act of resistance, I posted this the other day and people thought I was being serious, like voting is my superpower. And there's a problem with American liberals where they see politics in, I guess, the lens of Harry Potter or Star Wars, where Republicans bad, Democrats good. Every Democrat is good. Joe Biden is good. All Democrats are the same, and you got to be Team Blue, and it doesn't matter. No criticism of their policies. No looking into their past. No looking into their policies. They're the good guys. Republicans are the bad guys. So do not criticize them when they have all the power and do nothing. Just defend them and blame Republicans for everything, and then wait to lose. And maybe also blame some leftists like Bernie Sanders and Susan Sarandon. So we've dealt with why she is getting some hate at the moment. I want to go back into why people actually hate her, and it's because of, like we were saying, the 2016 election. And then I just want to read some absolutely unhinged articles written about her by other journalists and writers because they hate her so much because she didn't endorse Hillary Clinton. If that didn't break libs' brains enough that a left-wing celebrity woman wouldn't endorse Clinton, Sarandon then endorsed Jill Stein for president, like we've been saying, and she said in the video, "It's clear a third party is necessary and viable at this time, and this is the first step in accomplishing this end. Fear of Trump is not enough for me to support Clinton with her record of corruption. Now that Trump is self-destructing, I feel even those in swing states had the opportunity to vote their conscience." In her endorsement of Stein, Sarandon wrote that she'd been waiting for any indication that Clinton's positions on the issues that are most urgent to me have changed, but Sarandon charged that Clinton doesn't support a $15 minimum wage. The actress also charged that Clinton supports the Trans-Pacific Partnership, fracking, and unconstitutional military aid to Israel, which is another thing the libs hate her for. So just a bit more on Clinton. In November 2016, she said, "I'm worried about the wars, I'm worried about Syria, I'm worried about all of the things that actually exist, TTP, and I'm worried about fracking. I'm worrying about the environment, no matter who gets in. They don't address these things because money has taken over our system." So just moving on a bit, I want to read you some absolutely unhinged articles about Susan Sarandon, actually written by other women. So one from the New York Review. Year 1, my anger management, Kavernacle. I sometimes feel like I'm a different person now. I'm fidgety and irritable and have trouble concentrating. For months after the election, I could hardly read except for books about Roman history, which turns out to be full of Trump's fantastically rich sociopaths obsessed with crushing their enemies. So keep this in mind. She ends this by saying this is about Susan Sarandon, so listen to this. Trump voters are not the only people I hate. I also hate Jill Stein voters, Gary Johnson voters, Bernie dead-enders with their ridiculous delegate math, and people who could not bring themselves to pull the lever for Hillary so they didn't vote at all. I hate everyone who thought there would be no real difference between the candidates because Hillary was a neoliberal and a faux feminist and Trump was not so bad. I hate people who spent the whole election season bashing Hillary in books and articles and Facebook posts and tweets and then painfully, reluctantly dragged themselves out to vote for her as if their one little last-minute ballot cancelled out all the discouraging and dissuading they spent the 6 months inflicting on people. Right. These people even hate Hillary Clinton voters now. I especially hate everyone who thought that electing a reactionary monster would be okay because it would or could or might, who can tell, bring on the revolution. Looking at you, Susan Sarandon and Slavoj Zizek. You are idiots. And my heart seethes with wrath against you. Okay, yeah, because we all thought Zizek was going to be the biggest Clinton supporter. But these people just hate democracy at the end of the day. Like, even if you vote for Clinton, if you don't say very nice things about her, then they hate you anyway. It just makes me laugh that these liberals had their brains broken so bad that they just hate all these people exercising their democratic right to vote for people. And it shows the liberal mentality and why Democrats do so badly, right? You don't have to like Trump supporters and Trump voters, but you do often have to understand, if you want to win elections, why people might vote for Donald Trump. And in 2016, there are a lot more reasons that made sense as he was running as this like anti-establishment guy, which is really ironic because he's a billionaire, but he said a lot of things that appealed to like a lot of working class people about jobs and about healthcare and about all these different things that Clinton just did not say. And if you're just sick of this capitalist system and electoral politics, you're not responsible for monsters like Trump, which are symptoms of this gross capitalist system. This is why Susan Sarandon drives them so berserk, because she doesn't want to partake in this system or be complicit. Another one by Marina Hyde, an absolutely lovely Guardian journalist. Protest all you like, Susan Sarandon. In effect, you work for Trump. So Susan Sarandon was actually arrested in 2018 at an anti-Trump rally. I wonder what these two people have done like that. I doubt they've been arrested for protesting. Hang on, you may be thinking, I'm puzzled as to what Susan Sarandon was doing there in the first place. Didn't she in effect vote for Trump with her showy endorsement of third-party candidate Jill Stein? Yes, she did. And if she disagrees with that paraphrasing, she's welcome to come and have a sit-in at the Guardian's offices about it. Susan appears to have had zero moments of self-doubt since the election. That's good. She seems to yield to self-reflection about as much as Tony Blair, another individual unshakably convinced of his own moral rectitude. See also Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, they got to throw Corbyn in there as well. If you think it's pragmatic to shore up the status quo right now, Susan explained loftily before the 2016 election, then you're not in touch with the status quo. Here is the most unhinged part of the article. Susan, if you can't face up to the fact you dropped the bollock, please don't expect to be lionised for protesting things not unrelated to your decisions that you still believe were unimpeachable. In fact, please expect to be used for it by the enemy until you come to some sort of personal and public reckoning with the stuff you've said. In effect, you work for him. You are a MAGA asset. Every piece of showbiz posturing offers his base another chance to internalise the ideas of ludicrous liberal arrogance embodied in someone who, for all her theoretical pretensions, is really operating at the same analytical levels as but her emails. So absolutely unreal cope from them two people. I actually love how much she infuriates these people. Like, to even think someone like this is a MAGA asset just shows how much liberals understand politics, because you cannot criticise liberals. Like, that is literally the number one rule. Don't point out Hillary Clinton's terrible record. Don't point out Joe Biden's terrible record. Just get on Team Blue, shut up, or you actually work for the Trump campaign. And next time, it's going to be you work for DeSantis, you work for Trump again. If it's Joe Biden versus either of them, if it's Pete Buttigieg, if it's Kamala Harris, if you criticize them and say they're a terrible candidate and they're not going to do anything and they're going to lose the big one, they're going to say, well, you love Republicans. And you see it in the UK as well. Any critics of Keith Stalin, the leader of the opposition, is, well, you love the Tories, don't you? You must love the Tories. If you have a bad word to say about this knight of the realm establishment figure who purges left-wing members from a socialist party, then you actually must love Boris Johnson. Libs, that is not how politics work. The reason you have things like open primaries, leadership debates is because you're meant to scrutinise everyone's record and pick the best candidate. Bernie Sanders, my main criticism of him, he didn't go hard enough on Clinton and he didn't go hard on Biden at all because he was scared of the prospect of a Trump presidency, right? But ideally, you'd want people to have primaries, to criticise people. The Democratic establishment primaried Jimmy Carter with Ted Kennedy, right? They were willing to do that and they're willing to scrutinise him. And I'd say that's fair enough, right? Have primaries for sitting presidents if they're doing a bad job and scrutinise their record. Because in theory, that's how you should get the best candidate. But to libs, it's like, no, bow down to the anointed one, bow down to Biden, bow down to Clinton, bow down to Keith Starmer, because if you criticise them, you're actually just working for the right wing. Then how does anything change? You just accept mediocre candidates because they're not insane or they're not the right wing. You just keep quiet, you never say anything. They win elections, do nothing, lose elections, win elections again, nothing changes. And that's what Sarandon's getting at. This capitalist status quo does not really care, Republican or Democrat. It doesn't really matter to a lot of these people. I'm not saying to people you shouldn't vote or you shouldn't vote Democrat if you strongly believe that's what's important to the country or it's the best thing for harm reduction. I also hold no ill will to people like myself or Susan Sarandon who are just done with this political system, who don't care. Because as we're seeing with the union drive in America at the moment, a lot of the political power does not come from electoral politics. It comes from people organising and working together to improve their material conditions. But liberals do not understand that. It's the be-all and end-all of who becomes president. If a congressperson has a brackets D next to their name, despite anything they believe. The thing is, if Joe Manchin was the Democratic nominee for president, they'd shame you for not voting him if it was against Donald Trump. Even if like Mitt Romney was a Democratic nominee for president, they would shame you for not voting for Mitt Romney. I suspect even if George Bush Jr. could run again and it was against Donald Trump, they'd shame you for not voting for George Bush because we all seen how these people like to rehabilitate the worst president in history, seemingly because Donald Trump is a bit ruder than him. So if you ever wondered why so many liberal celebrities, liberal journalists, liberal media figures absolutely hate Susan Sarandon, it can be simply put that she didn't like Hillary Clinton, she endorsed Bernie Sanders, and she didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And that's everything. And even if you don't agree with that, even if you don't agree with everything she said on Twitter or all her politics, you have to admit that any reaction to her is massively overblown. Any blame put towards her for stuff that's happening now with Roe v. Wade, among other things, is absolutely unhinged and is a wider symptom of her being targeted because she does not conform to the liberal elite. She does not conform to liberal Hollywood. She actually stands up for her political beliefs. She actually does activism, and for things like Israel, she's among some of the few to actually call them out, which most actors and actresses will never ever touch. So that is Susan Sarandon, Derangement Syndrome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, on Instagram. Also join my subreddit, check out my Patreon, subscribe to my second channel, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.